some 20 some people. Then coincidentally, the diplomat from Vanuatu and the diplomat from Australia, they were talking to develop my trip to this region. So I didn't pay much attention. And then both of them to contact my PA. She is from Fiji. So among themselves developed my trip. So they, I thought, it could be like in total Vanuatu, Fiji, and Sydney. Total, I thought, some 9 days, 8, 9 days, I could do that. But eventually, total 12, 13 days. So it look longer. I have to leave my wife alone at home, waiting for me to play golf with me. So only my wife, as a wife is getting old, it becomes like an antique, which I have to protect, look after much more than before. But I felt something. Maybe it is another special opportunity for me to travel. Something, I may get something, obtain from something from this traveling. That's why I leave as it is, as they prepare. So I came here. But I believe it was my wise decision to travel, and also longer days of traveling, which where I can learn more. And also, I'm very pleased to be here. I didn't know much about the USP. I met a few professors at the different conference, and they approached to me, say something different ideas. I forgot actually topic. But then I learned about the USP, and I thought briefly how IMO can develop collaboration with the USP from this region. That is what I thought. But now I know more about the USP. USP is a very unique system mechanism. I see great value of performance and activities and the presence here. And also I feel USP is very active, proactive in communicating, building on collaboration with outside. It is a story, I feel it's a really outgoing, outreaching the activities by the USP. So in that sense, I really congratulate the progress achieved of this USP, and also I'm very privileged to be here. Having said that, I would like to explain about briefly about the IMO. So I was thinking how easier way I can explain what we are doing. So IMO is the one of 15 UN specialized agency. So there is another 15 directly under the UN headquarters, generally largely appointed by UN Secretary General. But the specialized agents, 15, each one has their own governing system. Also elected, the head of the organization elected by the member state, and each own budgetary financial mechanism. So IMO is one of 15, which is based in headquarters, based in London, only one. And some out of 15, some Geneva, some Vienna, some Nairobi, something like that. So scattered, but the IMO is the only one based in London. So when it comes to the IMO issues, you know that the shipping, is a key part of the IMO's function of the IMO, looking after safety, environment protection. So just I would like to mention very briefly, like this kind of building, we call it, like technology of architect. But when it comes to ship, naval architect. So naval architect and architect difference is mobility. Ships different from architect building. Ship is sailing, navigating on the sea, at the sea. So that is the only difference. This building has safety structural standard and evacuation system firefighting system, sort of a life-saving appliance system, all different kind of regulation apply to this building when it was designed and was constructed. So similarly, shipping as well. Those kind of different kind of the technical regulation apply. So the only difference, as I mentioned, mobility at the sea. In order to move a ship, we need seafarers who are navigating, operating a ship. And also there is additional the activities when it comes to the navigation or operation of ships. Some difference between naval architect and architect, building and the ship. And the ship is also thought of the estate, like a building, so according to the civil law, commercial law. So IMO is the convention adopted in 1948, and then the entered into force 1959. The first meeting took place January. Took place March or January in 1959. And now we have 174 member states, including 3 associated members like Hong Kong, Macau, and 143 observer organizations. Most of them are representing industry, different, maritime-related industry, and also environmental civic organization as well. And some IJOs like IH, Hydrography Office, and IALA, something like that. As a mission statement says, we are concerned, we are looking at the safety and security, environmental protection, and the facilitation of shipping, facilitation of navigation. Oh. We have achieved some different kind of activities. Like we have developed 50 international regulation, convention, which are relevant to safety and environment protection, security, and facilitation. One of the point which I'd like to mention, ship is like per human being. Ship is constructed from the beginning. I call it the birth of a ship. And before ship is constructed, there is a lot of effort, design, and for the purpose of that individual ship. And then sometime later, as mentioned, normally 25, 30 years later, ship will disappear, die. Now we call it recycling. So between birth and the death, recycling, there's many stories are taking place. It can be divided into 2. When it comes to the operation of a ship, one is the pure commercial activities by shipping company, pure commercial planning, purchasing, order, new shipping, or the freight rate negotiation with the customer. Those are pure, like protection of environment, protection of people, also protection of a ship itself, protection of a cargo. So ship may face certain challenges like accident. It can be damage to the people. Then should be compensation system. How to compensate the loss of life or injury to the people. How to compensate to the environment, if like oil pollution incident. It can be very serious incident. How compensate the damage to environment? So this kind of system, and once something happened, how telecommunication is working, including distress signal, and including search and rescue operation. And also when it comes to the oil pollution incident, how to remove oil, discharged from ship in terms of environment protection. So these one is we need a universal international regulation convention. If it's different, it can be implemented differently, not the collaboration among member states. So we need to develop, implement a different kind of international convention with respect to this one. And another one is a ship is moving. We need the seafarers navigating or engineering. So those seafarers, they have to be qualified for their expertise. So there is a training and certification for the seafarer. There is the STCW convention. So these one for convention for seafarers. IMO is dealing with those issues mainly for commercial merchant ships. But also when it comes to the safety of navigation, also we apply to the fishing vessels as well. Seafarers working on board a fishing vessel and the safety of a fishing vessel itself. So this is also area of a convention which is developed by IMO. But some relevant to the fishing vessels not yet entered into force because of lack of ratification. But the majority of convention relevant to the international, mainly international shipping, they are already entered into force, except some convention. And this is a general picture of what we are doing. And also another area that I have to mention, I mentioned about safety, environment protection, and security, etc. But I mentioned the facilitation of shipping. When a ship call a port, there is a lot of documentation procedure, like custom and port authority, immigration, quarantine, police, etc. All relevant authority get involved for their own individual purpose. If it is case, we have to standardize documentation, standardize the procedure. It shouldn't be different from port by port. So this is we call facilitation of shipping. So we are developing the standardized format, the procedure which can be applied for the many parts of the world. So this is really that is contributing efficiency of shipping and trade. With that activities, as you know, shipping is transporting more than 80% of international trade, cargoes. So we really contribute. And also, this is can be relevant to contributing to the international trade. But when it comes to this region, I would say more than trade, because many islands, you are very much depending upon the shipping for transportation, import, export, particularly by small island countries. So it is more than trade. It is actually, I would say, a lifeline to maintain economy and lively life of all the people, the inhabitant here. So that is the main area. One I'd like to mention is that what is it? It's okay. Lower part about the technical cooperation. IMO developing convention as a UN agencies, but it is challenging developing different regulation. Part of the member state, they want to more higher, more stringent, more faster. But many other developing countries, they want to have some more time to prepare themselves to implement. So big gap of difference. So we are trying to develop convention or criteria, how the highest practicable regulation, taking consideration situation of a developing country. However, we need to help a developing country to catch up for the development or implementation of a convention. So we are trying to provide for technical cooperation to developing countries. Not enough, but we are working hard. We have some financial constraint, but we try hard. One example is I'm going to mention the climate change issues. Major challenge actually we are facing is climate change issues. Climate change issues is a much bigger concept, much bigger impact to industry, not only shipping, all mode of industry, but the big impact to the shipping as well, huge impact. As you mentioned, the IMO actually last year adopted based on different kind of progress, but April last year, IMO adopted the comprehensive inertial strategy how to tackle climate change issues. The Vice President mentioned by 2050, the shipping targeting to reduction by 50%. But it is a 50% of aggregate total emission from international shipping. But you have to think about the increase of a shipping fleet. If you think about taking into consideration increase of shipping fleet, by 2050, when it comes to individual ship, energy efficiency, reduction of CO2 must be 90%. 90% reduction individual ship. We are doing different kind of like a measure, but actually we cannot meet that target, 90% reduction of CO2 emission by 2050, unless we develop alternative energy. Alternative energy is a key factor. So I believe USP is working on that area as well, energy, future energy, so which are crucial issues. But anyhow, we are working hard. Among different mode of industry, the IMO is working, moving ahead based on the strategy. But now we are talking, we have been already good technical, the major to the new ships, already we are doing, but now focusing on existing ship. Existing ship is some 55,000 ships. So we are focusing on existing ship, how to improve, the reduction of the CO2 emission. It is very challenging, but we are taking the different kind of measure, and we finalize by 2023, aiming 50% cut, individual 90% cut by 2050. So we have to finalize strategy by 2023. Another one is the low sulfur fuel oil. But you may not be familiar with this one. We have fuel oil for ships. Most of the cases, bigger ships uses the heavy fuel oil. Heavy fuel oil sulfur content that contain about 3.5% or 3%. Now we made adopted the regulation to reduce from 3 or 3.5 to 0.5%. Application around the world. It's a huge impact to energy industry. So it costs a lot of investment by the oil refinery to have additional facilities to produce a lower sulfur fuel oil. So this is a huge impact. So we adopted the final one 2016, but the earlier decision 2008, but the 2016 final decision, this will enter into force next year. Next year, it will contribute actually climate change with the lower sulfur fuel oil. It is emit less CO2 emissions. So this is another one is marine plastic issues, huge issues. So marine plastic issues, marine-based the plastic issues. There are several few the relevant organizations, IMO and FAO and IOC, others, UN, EP, others. But at the moment, the IMO has already legally binding instrument, which is under the MARPOL, Marine Pollution Convention. We have Annex 5, deal with the plastic issues as well. So we are emphasizing a lot to develop a strategy step by step. So we are collaborating with the FAO and other UNE, other agencies in order to facilitate handling these marine plastic issues based on our legal system. This is a big positive progress so far. So that is issues. And we are having a lot of technological development, so digitalization, automation, all technology are introduced to the shipping, to the ship. So the manufacturing, equipment manufacturing industry and the shipbuilding industry, they are actually pushing more to support this kind of activities. As I mentioned, the facilitation trade, this is relevant to the, as I mentioned, the port, relevant procedure in port area of shipping. And also, we are very much keen on the human element, particularly seafarer issues. Seafarer is 1.6 million working on board, around the world on board the merchant ship. So they are doing crucial contribution in terms of safety and the proper navigation of ships. So we are focusing on to help and also produce the qualified seafarers to maneuver ships more properly. So this is issues. And the seafarers, I mentioned this time point, among other different kind of union, industry union, many union, the seafarers union is I would say weakest the union. Why majority seafarers working on board the ship, scattered around the world. It's very hard they can unite, they can get together with the same voice. So they are very vulnerable, isolated from a family, isolated from a land, isolated from society. And only few, like 10, 20, some people working on board. Limited topic, even majority of ships, they have limit constraint to receive, to be offered, granted, Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi service cost expensive, so not many shipping companies provide 24 hours Wi-Fi service. So very vulnerable occupation. That's why we need to help, try to help as much as possible seafarers. This is a way of focusing on human element issues. So we are contributing UN SDGs, as you know, several SDGs relevant to the IMO work. And particularly this year, every year we are creating a campaign, catchphrase. This year, empowering women in maritime community. This catchphrase this year is working very successfully. Movement is moving forward around the world. It is very well received by the global community, particularly maritime sectors. So I believe this is one of the success story of the IMO, empower women. So I believe Fiji is well developed, already empowered women. That is not relevant to you, not many students here. So I'm very glad to be here and to meet all of you. And also I'm very happy to know more about the status and the contribution of USP. Really, USP is not limited to the region. I believe this is a global university.
Thank you again. And I'm going to open the floor for any pending questions or comments. The opportunity to share or to ask any direct questions. Sure.
There are no opportunities for people to study in the Pacific region, so maybe USP can start partnering with you so that it's not just the Malmo and in Malta, but something in the Pacific would be very important. We are all island nations, and I think a partnership with USP going forward would be something we would thoroughly welcome.
Yes, it is. So under the umbrella of our organization, we have two educational institutions. One is the World Maritime University, which was established in 1983. At that time, the IMO Secretary General, Mr. Srivastava from India, most respectable Secretary General, and he established the World Maritime University. It is very, very successful for master degree course and the doctoral as well. Another one is the International Maritime Law Institute in Malta. It is a conjunction with Malta University. So those are two, the educational institutions is very successful, very successful. So in that sense, also last year, World Maritime University, there was affiliated research center, Ocean Policy Research Center. So I believe there is a big potential to collaborate, between the IMNI Law Institute and the World Maritime University and the USP, big collaboration. And also, I believe that's why I mentioned USP is not actually limited in terms of geographical location, not limited here. Deal with the ocean issues, global issues. So most, closest the position of concern relevant to ocean, this area. So you are dealing with ocean-related global concern. So it should be more collaboration. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Looks like our first partnership starting today. Questions, comments? Peter?
Thank you very much, Secretary General, and much appreciated your comments. If I could start with a comment, and that's to respond to your statement that you don't know a lot about USP. So just to give you a very quick summary, because I've been leading a lot of the work involved in that, USP has been leading research and education in the field of decarbonisation of shipping, both at international and at domestic level, since 2012. We've developed undergraduate courses, we run a small postgraduate program in the area, we have published widely book chapters, ranked journals, presented around the world on 5 continents. USP is the only small island states member of the Carbon Pricing Leadership Partnership in shipping, and we've been an active partner in that for the last 2 years as well. Since 2015, and at the invitation, as the whole I mentioned, of the Government of the Marshall Islands and the late Tony de Brum, this university has been backstopping the increased Pacific participation, which you recognised in your speech earlier, and also I think you referred to it at the Laucala Campus in Vanuatu. So we have drafted and negotiated every one of the co-sponsored Pacific submissions since 2015 in MEPC on emissions reduction. We're also the initiator of the SHAC partnership with Europe, New Zealand, Mexico, Canada, and now been joined by South American countries, which I think is generally recognised as the catalyst for your initial target of at least 50%. And I wanted to stress that point because the target in the initial strategy is not 50% reduction. We compromised, sir, on that. The Pacific went through a huge compromise process in order to accept the wording at least 50%. And that brings me to the first of 2 questions that I have for you. We have an initial strategy, 2018, that I'd like to think we played a huge role in achieving. But your final target must be set in 2023. And since that initial target of at least 50% was set, we have had the IPCC report, we have had a number of major scientific reports come out saying that at least 50% is not enough. So the Pacific, I think, will push very hard between now and 2023 for the final strategy to include a 70 to 100% reduction. And my question is, will the Secretariat support us in that drive, given that the IMO is bound to be science-based in its approach? In regards to shipping, Taholo also alluded to, is the issue of whether we host or we do not host open registries. And so we have countries like the Marshall Islands, the second biggest and the second biggest contributor of core funding, which our centre is partnered with. We also have countries like Fiji and the Solomons who have taken a strategic decision not to host open registries. So back in 1993, when UNCTAD was describing the open registry system as the cancer of world shipping, my question to you is, what role do you see the open registries playing in the drive to decarbonise world shipping?
It looks difficult questions. Yeah. The first question, as I mentioned, it is at if the 50% reduction, it means taking consideration increase of shipping fleet. If you look at individual ship, 90% reduction. Why I'm saying is that I know dealing with the shipping issues long in terms of operation wise, but the general audience just remember 50%. Why not 70? Why not 100? But if you calculate increase of a shipping plate, if you calculate, it means a ship should reduce 90% reduction of CO2 emission, technically. If you want to 90% reduction, as I mentioned, without the alternative, impossible. Today I attended the MTC's Technological Cooperation Center. They have developed a certain program, including different, the element, all total, they say 30% reduction, 34% reduction. We cannot do 90%. So must be alternative energy. That's why energy industry should be closely engaged in the process for shipping as well. Shipping fuel oil different from fuel oil by other mode of industry. That's why we are focusing on collaboration oil industry as well. That's why we are doing, in terms based on inertial strategy, we are talking specific, the short-term, mid-term, we are doing. But on top of that, this October, IMO itself organizing international workshop. One is low sulfur fuel oil, and second topic, future fuel oil. So we are encouraging awareness of the member state, and also we encouraging, collaboration among industry, oil industry, bunkering service, shipping, and the shipbuilding as well. So we want to collaborative effort among different stakeholders. Finally, we have to finalize our strategy by 2023. In order to finalize, we are starting fourth time the GHG emission study. We are starting this year. So we are calculating, real emission, one, and also we are implementing data collecting system. Actually, we collecting data from individual ships, how much they emit, It is, EU is doing, and IMO global implementation, based on those data, and we are finalizing even mid-term, long-term strategy. But based on this kind of data, we may revise the inertial strategy by 2023. We may revise. I hope you will be more satisfied with this. Second question, open registry used to be 20 years ago flag of convenience. Now it was called the open registry. Now it is called the International Ship Registry. There are more than 60 like international registry run by around the world, but there is a big gap among them. So IMO side, we are actually by different kind of mechanism, including port state control, we're encouraging so-called quality international shipping. 20 years ago, currently major shipping industry reputation was not very high 20 years ago. Now, much better. Also, much better than average member state. So we cannot abolish that system because of the nature of international shipping. We cannot. If it is the case, we need to encourage, promote their quality management of shipping, compliance. I would mention there is now 3 pillars under the global IMO level. One is international ship registry. Another one is a classification society. Actually, they have ships registered from ships which belongs to the other country. So they have a registry. Classification society, they are delegated from real flag state to do something, including from international registry. Ship management company, now they are delegated by shipping company to look up the international convention. So ship management company is very crucial. That's why we are going to look at this picture, international registry, classification society, and the ship management company. We are going to get them together to work for the proper implementation of a convention. So this is the situation. So indirectly, we encouraging the better performance of international ship registry. But Marshall Island here changed, improved a lot, Marshall Island. But there are several other actually running. Also, they are working hard, but we need to encourage those activities. So thank you for your raising that concern.
Thank you.
You are a real expert.
Let's not get him started. I recognize we're running out of time. Do we have one more question? Okay, I've got a hand here.
Good morning. Adrian Bullier from the European Commission here in Suva. I appreciate your parallel between buildings and ships, because I've been working on buildings for quite a long time. And I appreciate that they're very different. When we work on buildings across the world, we use regulations on new buildings, and then everybody agrees to say, well, the big unknown is what you do on the existing ships. I was on the existing buildings. I was wondering how it works with ships. If you could give a few figures on the total fleet of ships that we're talking about. What is their average? We had an average age in the Pacific. How is that in general in the world? How often are ships renewed? And when you talk about your strategy, are you looking more at basically getting rid of all the existing ships by 2050? Or is there going to be a lot of effort on existing ships? And without entering into the technology debate, how mature are the technological options to reach that?
Actually, if you compare the ships and the building, as I mentioned, one crucial factor is mobility. And the ships, most of big ships is the constructed material of steel, different from a normal building. So that must be corrosion more than a normal building. Okay. Ships' lifetime is very, very different, depending upon who operating. If it is operating another different way, the lifetime can be reduced. But another shipping company, they look up the much better, it go longer. And also subject to the cargo. If it is oil tanker, not damaged actually. Oil is oil liquid. It's pumping in, pumping out, not damaged. Different from the ore carrier. So subject to the cargo, type of cargo, lifetime is very different. So that's why there has not been standard criteria in terms of lifetime of ships. Okay. What's going on now? So now, as I mentioned, IMO 60 years operational history. Now is shipping industry having biggest challenge. One is we are implementing ballast water equipment system. It is preventing like a transfer of invasive like a species from A to B. It is this one cost a lot of money retrofitting by shipping company. It is now already happening. Second one, low sulfur, as I mentioned, fuel oil is a huge impact to, because low sulfur issues, normal like oil, if it is $100, low sulfur fuel oil, it is more than $200 much more expensive. So shipping companies think whether they maintain existing 10 years old ship with the higher the price for fuel oil, or they should go for another new ship which can use LNG. So huge impact to the shipping company. Third one, we are talking about the climate change issues. Climate change issues is a huge impact again, shipping company. In order to reduce at least 50, as I mentioned, individual ship, 90% reduction. With the current system of ship, we cannot achieve. Another one, automation and the digitalization. This is also affecting. These one taking place set at the same time, simultaneously. The environment protection mainly, or technological development, but the impact actually taking place for shipping company need to replace existing one with new one. It's taking place. Even last year, 15 years old ship, many 15 years old ship were scrapped because of this one. If you have financial resources, you order new ship. If you order new ship, same size, compared to the current existing ship, at least 40% energy efficiency. Huge difference. That's why if you have a certain financial resources, they make order. Then they run 20, 25 years. Before 2050, they replace new one. We do not know if you want new one now, new ship. We are not sure whether it can be used 25 years because climate change, etc. Pressure is bigger and bigger. Maybe sometime they may be replaced earlier than the schedule. This is happening. So, as the Vice President mentioned, how to handle, how to help the small shipping company when they want to reduce ships with a new one. What is the financial support or the mechanism to support? There is also issues. Why, as I mentioned, they are in a way very strongly encouraged to have a new ship. This is taking place. So inevitably, it's moving in that way. Thank you.
Thank you. I've been told we can take a couple more questions. I think I'm learning a lot just listening to some of the dialogue going on. I have a hand in the back here.
Thank you very, very much for your talk. As we move towards low emission strategy or low emission regime, all the different sectors have to come together. As you said, that the shipping sector has to reduce its emissions by 90%. So it cannot do it alone unless we talk to the utilities, we talk to the various energy providers. So my question is, does IMO is in conversation with other, like International Energy Agency or International Renewable Energy Agency, and talking about various ways in which IMO can support utilities or smaller countries?
For that question, actually, our initial strategy adopted last year, the IMO member state tried to adopt that strategy based on like evidence. However, that was actually ambition. Why ambition? We need more technological development, more research work about the future energy. Huge difference. Hydrogen, biofuel oil, electricity, several other options, wind, etc. How we, those each factor contribute, we don't know exactly actually. So, point is that without a certain target policy, relevant stakeholders reluctant to make investment for research and R&D. That's why wanted to have a certain ambition with which they can, with that as a baseline, they make investment for fuel oil, equipment, ship's design, and also engine, all different concept of ship is coming. So that's why look ambitious, but could be misunderstood because if we say at least 50%, but actually eventually 90% we look at the individual one. Huge ambition. That's why that time, as you mentioned, there is a lot of confrontation, discussion. Those who want to make it faster, more higher, or those who want to bit not welcoming, and those who middle ground member state. Lot of consultation, and they reached that. Lots of communication, European Union, other regional organizations. Then, and also there is a lot of concern from developing countries, particularly shipping company from development. They were very concerned about that. But since it is a global agenda, we cannot avoid. We needed a certain policy, firm policy, with which we can start. So there is a still concern, challenge to the shipping company in respect to the financial resources, still challenging, but we cannot avoid that, but we have to adopt that one. And now we are focusing on the specific measure to implement.
Thank you for very nice presentation and very informative about the IMO and various other activity that has been carried out by IMO. As you presented that there are many thousands of these ships which are running around the globe. And of course, it's very well known fact that they have been making a lot of pollution also too, Is there any strategy that IMO has basically developed to reduce the pollution to a great extent?
You mean the pollution by which action?
By the ship in this.
You mean there is a pollution two kind. Pollution from accident of a ship, pollution by normal operation.
It's a pollution by the normal operation.
I see. When it comes to pollution from normal operation, we have MARPOL Convention, International Convention for Prevention of Pollution from Ships, MARPOL. So there is Annex 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 6, up to 6. So with that, we can control operational discharge of pollution from ships. But when it comes to the liquid cargo, I believe very much well controlled by our member state. But when it comes to Annex 5, like waste, Annex 5 is the controlling waste from ships. So this is something challenging. Annex 6 deal with the climate change issues, but Annex 5 is a waste. Waste, we need a certain additional infrastructure if we control stringently waste from ships, should be reception facility in the port. So ship discharge waste to the shore, and the shore, they have the system to receive. But the IMO has been doing, putting a lot of effort, but when it comes to reception facility, actually we have to increase our effort. One is that nowadays we are talking about the marine-based marine plastic issues. Marine-based plastic is generated actually from fishing vessels, maybe 70, 80%. So we provide reception facilities. We cannot succeed with this project. That's why we are now starting with so discuss with the financial institution to provide the relevant port with the reception facilities. But when it comes to general oil or chemical, that is the well controlled so far. Thank you.
I have one more hand from our co-host from government.
Thank you, Excellency. Just a last question from the Ministry of Infrastructure and Transport. Just to say that I recently graduated from IMLI this year, and one of the biggest things that we learned was that the effective implementation of the international conventions into domestic law. What would be your advice to member states, especially to the Pacific Island countries, to ensure that the conventions are effectively implemented in the member states? Thank you, Excellency.
I didn't know you graduated IMNI. I presented the certificate to you. So International Maritime Law Institute, based in IMNI, average 40 students are coming. Most of them are already married, a lawyer. So very, very renowned, and I'm very proud of the IMNI. Now, regarding the domestic ship legislation for domestic ship and the regulation of domestic ship, IMO has not done much about the domestic ship. Why? It is relevant to the sovereign right. So there was a several attempt to help member states with the domestic ships, but some strong member states, they were actually not welcome. Didn't like that. So there is some limitation. However, recently there have been some serious accident by coastal domestic ship in the member state. So that's why we are already started we adopted the agenda item for domestic ship. So this is additional new development. So when it comes to starting, we are going to provide the legal system and the training and also capacity building and also in the Pacific Island exclusively. But I believe we can take up that aspect for this region. So when it comes to the small island country, this area actually in a way representing in terms of a small island the countries around the world. So that's why I really appreciate the role of USP, like working as a think tank for that purpose. Thank you.
I've been seeing some more hands go up. Urgent questions or clarification?
Just a kind clarification, because there are different types of seat you presented, and their life is also differently. Is there any specific rule is implemented by IMO that this particular type of ship cannot be operated beyond this period, or cannot be sold even if they want to sell to other country, another place? Like one incident I want to tell you here, that it happened that one of these ships, whose name was Ashika, was sold by Fiji somewhere it was sold, and it purchased by Tonga. And if I remember correctly, that was completely dipped in while it was going from Tonga Tapu to to Babau Island. And there's lot of hundreds of people just died in the ship. It's maybe around 5-6 years ago. So there should be very clear rule, is it? Is there anything, the rule that has been implemented by IMO that the particular ship should have particular years of life?
As I mentioned, the IMO is developing global universal standard. So it is very hard to go further detail regulation respect to the region, respect to the type of cargo, respect to the limitation of the lifetime of ships. It is very hard to move in that. But one way is that there is a certain, can be regional agreement or bilateral agreement to that purpose. There is some example for that purpose. But I see your point. But maybe can be in the future more consideration about that aspect. If IMO can do more. Like another development, as I mentioned, we are starting the legislation, the guidance for domestic.
So domestic ships have national regulations. When it comes to international ships, you're working on standards that will include efficiency and renewables and clearly ambition. How are these going to translate into concrete requirement enforced by regulators? Because going back to buildings, a new building has to comply with the building codes in most countries. Existing buildings, increasingly, how does it work with ships? Who is enforcing? Are there laws? Are there legal standards? And how are they enforced?
Yeah, that's why, as I mentioned, there was not much development respect to domestic ship relevant to the sovereign right. That's why we are aiming to develop a guidance. So by which member state take advantage of the guidance in developing that one. So I believe even guidance will be very helpful to developing our member state, even domestic ships. The guidance, and also we cannot go into too much detail of a technical one, but we have a certain more detailed regulation of criteria about for international ships. But I believe with some limitation, go into detail for domestic shipping. But at least we produce certain guidance which can be used for the member state. So there is sovereign right always there. But when it comes to the environment issues, the MARPOL Convention, basically this one applied to the domestic waters as well. Currently,
And to international?
Yeah. Safety regulation, they apply to international shipping. Pollution issues apply to the even ships, which coastal ships as well. This is the difference.
Okay, I've got the last question, just at the top there. And then we're closing. While the mic's going up there, there's the reception this afternoon, the formal farewell reception. I've been asked to extend an open invitation to all of you. At the museum, 6 p.m. It's another opportunity to listen to final words. But again, just our final question.
Thank you. Really, it's not a question. It's just a clarification on the last statement on the ship that was sold by the Fiji. It was not sold by Fiji. It was sold. It was an arrangement made by companies to companies. Thank you.
Thank you. Presentation. I think I've learned a lot. I thought I wouldn't keep up with the technical discussion, but I actually could. There's quite a few things there that I would be very interested in following up with others later on. Again, thank you very much. A big hand for our Secretary General. I know it's been a very busy week, but safe travels for the rest of your journey. Thank you. questions there?